Hey guys, it's Tag from Data 6, and tonight we're going to be making some beef jerky. We're going to do in a couple different parts of it. The first one is the meat and how to slice it. I usually use an eye round that you can pick up from Sam's or Costco, somewhere that can do some bulk beef, and you want to buy a whole one. Because there's not a whole lot of trimming that you have to do to it. Yeah, it comes in with a lot of fat on it, but you can leave that on there. You don't need to trim any of that off. And you know, a lot of people in our family kind of like the fat that's on the beef jerky anyway. So the first thing you need to do, since it comes like this size, is cut it down into sections. And you're going to want a really good sharp knife. I always use a Chinese meat cleaver after working in Beijing. I had used one for the first time there, and I just think it's a great knife to use, and you're going to want to make sure that it's sharp. And if you have a sharpening steel, it's just a matter of just keeping the blade sharp every now and then while you use it. So then you're going to cut it in sections, and you're just breaking it down. I'll show you the method that I use. I use a meat slicer, and this is really the only way to get it to fit on there, plus inside the the dehydrator that I have. So we're going to break this meat down. And what I try to do is I put it in the freezer for a little while just to get it a little semi-frozen. It's a little bit easier to cut. And we'll use this piece, and I'll show you why. Now normally I have, like I said, I have a meat slicer that I use, but you can do it with a knife, but you got to make sure that it's a sharp one. And what I usually do, you cut along the grain, not against. And that's what keeps it from falling apart when it gets dehydrated. And you want it anywhere between 1/4 of an inch and 1/8 of an inch in thickness. And you just cut it down in strips, pieces like that. This is why it's important to have a sharp knife. Always put your cutting board on a sheet pan. Keeps any of the blood from running all over the floor or all over your countertops and under the floor. A lot of people put towels down, a wet towel. I normally do that when I'm at work, but I didn't do that on this one. And that's about as thick as you want it. And you just slice the whole thing. And you can still break it down even more. Once you've cut all the pieces that go in the dehydrator. You can take a lot of the pieces and cut it that way, make irregular shapes and different sizes. I've got child number 5 in here, and I think number 6 is running around me. And they're laughing. There might even be child number 4 in there. And you want to have it in pieces like that. And it just makes it a whole lot easier to take care of when you're putting it on the dehydrator. So they're standing behind me wanting to sneak in here and ask something. And I don't know why they're being shy. They're usually all big hams. And that's how we end up cutting it down. That's how we cut it down with the knife. Alright, the next cutting method is using a meat slicer. This is one that I have that used to be my parents', and it's an old one. I remember when I was a kid when my dad got it to do country ham, and he used it once, and it sat in a box at my mom's place till I brought it home. And I've been using it quite religiously with the making beef jerky. So what you'll do is you'll set your gauge to the thickness that you want, and that's about right there. And then you're still going to cut it, going with the grain, not against it, and we'll trim any pieces that if they're too big. Same thing, it's just not doing it with the knife. So it's about the same thickness. And we just do all that with, and I think those are pretty good sized pieces that we don't need to trim any down. The bigger, the middle of the meat, you'll need to trim it. Towards the end, you won't need to do as much. And so I'm going to go ahead and finish slicing that up, and then I'll go through to the marinade. All right, just for fun, I got a kitchen scale out, and I have zeroed the scale out with the weight of the bowl, so it's right now it's at 0. And I'm curious to see how much this meat's going to weigh, and then after we put it in the dehydrator, I'm going to weigh it again to see what the difference is. I'm just curious to see how much moisture actually comes out of it. So with that being 0, and then with that is 6 pounds and 15.6 ounces of sliced meat. And we'll see what that comes up to after we get it out of the dehydrator after a couple hours. Alright, this is kind of step 2. You need to make your marinade. And I've already pre-measured a lot of this stuff out and have it out, but I'll tell you what my recipe is. The first thing is half a cup of brown sugar. The next thing is half a cup of white sugar. And I would recommend doing this in a stainless steel bowl or a glass bowl. But you want to mix those sugars in there good. And you'll see why I'm the last ingredient on this. Or one of the last. The next thing is going to be 3 tablespoons of kosher salt. And then 2 tablespoons of just table grind pepper. You can use coarse ground pepper, but just 2 tablespoons of black pepper. If you have fresh garlic, that's great. I don't feel like mincing it. So I usually just get the store-bought chopped oil, or chopped garlic and oil, and you want to use kind of a tablespoon, about that much in there, but you're going to give them 2. And we might as well just go ahead and do 3. Put that over here, and then mix that in. Now a lot of the brown sugar is still going to be in clumps, but that's okay because the next thing we're going to add is going to dissolve a lot of that. And this is one thing I can't do in my kitchen at work, but I can do it at home. Let's enjoy beer. The next thing you're going to need is some liquid smoke. I do a lot of this, so I have a gallon's worth, and you can pick that up also at Sam's or Costco. But you want to add enough liquid smoke to dissolve your sugars. And you just want to sit here and keep stirring that till it's done. This is why I sit in a stainless steel or a glass bowl, because the liquid smoke will stink up a plastic bowl or possibly stain it. And I really didn't pour that much in there. There's really not that much in the bowl. Put the cap back on. And then the last ingredient is going to be white distilled vinegar. And you don't need a whole lot. Just a little splash. And what that does is that's going to help kind of break the meat down and get the marinade on it. And then we mix that in, and it's got a real smoky flavor. This recipe is as close to the Bridgeford brand that I could come up with, and it took me about 4 years to figure out the recipe that I have, and I just shared it with y'all. So once your marinade is done, this is the fun part. You still want to get a metal bowl. You want to get some of your beef. I wear gloves when I do this part. Just I don't want to have smoky smelling hands. But this is the best way to do this. Put some of the sliced meat in. And then pour half your marinade in. And then mix it by hand. Like so. Put the other half of your sliced meat in. Oh Lord, I had a whole piece I didn't cut. Well, we can save that for tomorrow. I'm going to be making 2 batches of this. And then pour in the remainder of the marinade. You can always take a piece out and wipe everything out of it on your meat. And then toss the rest of that. Now I usually give that an hour's soak time with the marinade, and I'll come back probably in 20-30 minutes and toss it again, mix it all over again, so any of the marinade that's dripped off the meat comes back up on the top. And that's about what it's going to look like. And I don't even put it in the refrigerator. I just leave it out for an hour because you're going to put it on your dehydrator or your oven, and I'll show you that on the next part. Okay, our third and final step is going to be dehydrating the beef jerky. I use a fan forced air stackable tray style dehydrator. It's by Golden Harvest, and the highest temperature for this one is 148 degrees. If you're going to do this at home, you can turn your oven down to the lowest setting of 170, which most of them go, and if your oven racks are clean, you would just lay the slices of meat out directly right onto the oven racks, and then just close the door, and that would probably cook for, I don't know, 6 to 8 hours, even though there's no fan in it. This usually takes a little bit longer. Well, no, I'm sorry. This usually takes about the same time, but it's on a lower heat because it's got that fan. So it's just a matter of stacking the meat throughout the tray, and then stack another tray on top. And this is another thing that I would wear gloves when I do. So I'll put a pair of gloves on, and then go ahead and start putting the meat out on the tray. I preheat these, or I preheat this usually for an hour. So while I had the meat marinating, I had this already turned on and was heating itself up. So it's just going to be a matter of laying all the meat out, and I try to pack as much of it on there as I can. Kind of like playing Tetris. There's one tray. And third tray. Fourth tray. And the fifth tray. And then the lid. Now it's 9:24 p.m. and I'll probably be going to bed around 1 o'clock in the morning. And that's when I will check this to make sure that it's doing like it's supposed to be doing. And we'll go from there. Oh yeah, I've gotten a haircut since our last video that we had. And so we'll just go from there and see how things go later. Oh, I'm sorry. You'll have to wait for part 2, which will be the finished product.